Hello everyone, we're here with Roxanne Meadows and Nate Dinwiddie answering some questions that we received from the Russian-speaking community. Roxanne, how is your health and what are you currently doing at the research center?
My health is great and everybody's doing well here. No problems. We're working really hard. If you check our newsletter, you'll see what we are, a priority right now are the over 800 lectures from Jacques Fresco that we have in our archives. And we are transcribing them, having them transcribed, and proofreading them, which is a lot of work.
Would the current health crisis help in advancing the project? Has Jacques warned us of a possible crisis like this one?
Yeah, there's instances in the past where he's warned about a globally catastrophic or high-risk threat that might come. Could come in various forms. He's warned about a pandemic before and certain steps that we should take. It awakes people to the fact that we are a globally interconnected system, so it necessitates more of a systems thinking mindset, and that moves people closer to the way they need to think about other problems. So it's helping to force people to confront the reality of our global interconnectivity and maybe start thinking about solutions from that mindset.
And I think it shows how inept our government is, and governments all over the world, that we can't get together on a global scale. And we're still independent nation states that don't work on problems and solve problems collectively, which this needs. So I think people begin to see that.
Yeah, you can imagine there's a few more problems like this where they're global in nature, and it'll become commonplace to think from this global perspective eventually. And then they come across something like the Venus Project, and it's going to make much more sense much more quickly when they've already encountered these global problems in their everyday life.
You know, Jacques always used to talk about it'll take biosocial pressures or the march of events, things that happen outside in the real world to make people look for something else. Meaning they lose their jobs, public health crisis, the technological unemployment, also put wars and pandemics and, the people talking about global change were talking about this as well, that pandemics would come up more so. But nobody took heed of that either.
With enough of these problems, the Venus Project will seem like common sense to most people eventually. So that's how it helps.
Which mechanisms and technologies could prevent the spread of deadly viruses in the future if we manage to realize the project?
Well, that would be up to those people working in that field. And, the state of the art of technology at the time. So this is not something I can answer, but people in the future, we would prevent these, we would address these or types of situations ahead of time, understanding that this could happen. So we would prepare for these things ahead of time. Also, people would be healthier, so that helps when your immune system is healthier, which today the healthcare industry is not as concerned with that. They get money when they treat people for bad health or ill health. So it's quite backwards in terms of what we need.
And you can imagine a time when there's a greater abundance of medical resources available to the population, where there's more proactive or preventative medicine that's taking place. So you might imagine that people would have a more regular checkup medically and wouldn't be worried about the bills related to it. And so these kinds of things would be caught very quickly in the population, and then the proper contingency plans would be activated and probably quarantined much more quickly than it happened today.
Yeah, and Jacques used to talk about special contingencies where they plan in advance for these things, whether it's hurricane or fires or epidemics of this nature. So, and they don't have to appeal to governments. They have the resources that they need, and they just activate those plans that they do ahead of time.
And there were people even now who had anticipated this kind of crisis happening, and some people had some proactive research that they were doing, but the coordination of those insights toward some kind of plan to handle it, there was a disconnect, so we get the result we got. But you can imagine in the future that there would be much more priority given to the long-term global public health and these kinds of the more forward-thinking researchers who are extrapolating these outcomes would be given more consideration because our priorities would be different.
Right. Instead of profit and an advantage for certain governmental parties, the priority would be people's health.
Well, sure. You think how much funding goes to military, right? The majority of the budget, and how much of it actually goes to like medical research, and so completely turning that around in the future.
How can we convince governments and the general public that it's necessary to advance towards a resource-based economy? And do you plan to continue engaging with the UN?
Well, I think the same way we've been working on things to try and convince people of a different vision and different ways of organizing society, different priorities. Best way to do that, we always thought, were through films, or now we're talking about transmedia projects that Nate is working on. So all the ways that we've been trying to do that through social media, through lectures, through books, want to develop courses. And the first step toward that, as we'll talk about, are the transcriptions and the exposure of the over 800 lectures that Jacques had done during his lifetime. Well, we're not really engaging with the UN. Jacques was awarded an award in, 2016. We were also invited to an event at the UN when we were doing a world lecture tour, because we lectured at a certain location. So they invited everybody who had lectured at that location to an event that the UN was putting on. So we don't have an ongoing relationship with them. I was asked to speak at the UN, but that didn't go through. So we're not engaged in anything with them at this point.
What can each of us do to help realize the project, taking into account the current situation with the virus and once it passes as well?
The same advice that we've always given, which is to continue learning about the Venus Project, and there's going to be a lot more to learn as we make more information available, especially from Fresco's lectures. But also important is to become a generalist, to study in many different areas in different scientific fields and understand the basic principles of how things work in these different areas. That's one way to eventually probably help the Venus Project, is when you bring that broad understanding to how the world works. If there ever comes a time where more people can participate on the ground at some site, maybe special consideration would be given to people like that who have a very well-rounded generalist knowledge, somewhat of a command over many different subject matters. So that's one thing certainly people can do. Other than that, it's continuing to talk to people that you know about the Venus Project and trying to test your understanding against their criticism or their other worldview, whatever it is, and try to improve your presentation of what these ideas are about. And maybe persuade people to take on some of the ideas if they're sound.
It's really an ongoing, a lifelong project to be able to deal with other people and talk to them about these ideas and see how far you get with them and how you can, that really is the test of understanding this in a lot of ways to be able to change people's values.
And in relation to the current crisis, just point out what we've pointed out earlier, which is that this crisis exposes certain systemic weaknesses that we have as a global civilization, and then point out that the Venus Project tries to offer a different approach to how to handle these systemic problems. And so it's a very convenient way into talking about the Venus Project now that we have this crisis. So it makes opening up conversation easier.
What are your future plans?
Well, I want to start with Jacques was not a prolific writer, but he was an extremely prolific speaker. We have, as I mentioned, we have over 800 hours of his lectures. And this is really the basis of our foundation, which most people haven't even explored because we don't have it out there yet. So what we just had a campaign, a $50,000 matching campaign, and with those funds, and this really should have been done right after Jacques died, but we didn't have the funds to do that. We are committing these funds to have all the lectures transcribed. At this point, we need to get funding for proofreaders. We are doing proofreaders through volunteers. But we really want to preserve Jacques' knowledge, and having it all put into text form enables us to continue the work that we want to do based on the lifetime work of Jacques. And I don't know anybody who's worked in so many different disciplines to synthesize and put together so much information toward a positive alternative.
So beyond that is building upon the foundations that Fresco laid and expanding on some of the concepts, and integrating more detail from other fields, other contemporary fields, and other thinkers. And it'll be a goal to try and network with many of these people in these different fields, those that we identify as highly relevant or correlative to the ideas that we propose, and getting their feedback, getting more expert judgment and knowledge from these individuals, and building up a network, trying to become a central node among many other groups who are pursuing something similar, or at least some part of what we're working on, and eventually trying to coordinate them, sort of function as the think tank or organization that performs the strategic coordination of these other groups toward a shared similar direction. And that will include the actual work that goes into building the models for the future world that we want to build. And that's anywhere from economy to the systems governance to the management of behavior. And so they'll be important for that. And it's also a matter of not just building the models that we actually want to put into practice, but also representing the vision of the future. So we do that through story and through simulation. And that's kind of the leading light that guides people for, where to go, what to do with the research they're working on, and like what to use it for. And then beyond that is maybe something more, construction.
Yes, once we, as Nate mentioned, we would like to position ourselves as a think tank to present really the direction that Jacques worked on all his life. But we need a lot of information in very specific fields, kind of expanding the lineage of Jacques' history and knowledge and research, and bring these different groups and individuals in academia and organizations together who have done a lot more research and detail the things that we need to plug in to where we want to go, kind of the state of the art of different technologies and different sciences, and then after that comes things like the Center for Resource Management, when we bring those people together who are the foundation of what we wanted the Center for Resource Management to be, a group of people that are working on what is necessary to bring us to the next step of the future, to build cities and experiment with different aspects of what the environment should be to shape people's behavior. So coming back to the transcriptions, we want to put this text into journal form, and we will be putting into a different software and organizing the material into different subjects, different disciplines, and producing books and courses, which is something we don't have, which is really important. Sort of pulling out the best information from material that we have. So these will also be transformed into, or helping, as Nate said, the transmedia projects, and be able to produce papers and journals so we can approach these other disciplines as well. And we will be doing that through a podcast also.
Is it now more difficult to advance the project now that Jacques is not with us anymore? What would happen when Roxanne passes away?
Well, I work with a group of people, it's not just me, who work at it, several of us all the time. And this is now a nonprofit organization, so there is nobody particularly heading it or running it. It works with the board of directors, which you can see on our website. And we collaborate on different things. And I mean, legally, we have to because of the nature of the nonprofit organization. So when I die, hopefully it'll be positioned enough so it can continue on its own. I mean, one of the other things that we're really trying to do with the extensive text from the transcriptions, or the lectures, is to be able to put it all on a Jacques Fresco website, calling it Jacques Fresco Foundation. So no matter what happens to individual people or even the organization itself, that information will be preserved and hopefully will make a big difference as to where humanity and civilization goes in the future.
Mm. And as to the first part of the question, is it now more difficult to advance the project now that Jacques is not with us anymore? In many ways, sure, but it was even difficult to initiate certain things even when Jacques was alive. So Jacques changed a lot of people and set in motion a lot of different values and introduced a whole new way of a whole change for a culture in itself and society. So we have a lot of information to be able to act upon.
I will say a couple of things there. I think as people know, as Jacques got older, he got more and more frail, and Roxanne had to assist him in those years. So in some ways, it's easier because Roxanne's time is more freed up to work on many more things and continue learning and reading. But at the same time, Jacques was kind of like a form of quality control in terms of what fits with the vision and what doesn't. And also, anytime you're working in a group, there's more complication in terms of finding agreement and being decisive about exactly what you're going to do. When Jacques was around, he was much more in a position to make decisions, and that made things easier. But a group situation is still workable. It's just a little more challenging, but that's across the board. Anywhere you go, anytime you have a group decision-making process, it's a little slower and a little bit more, a lot more communication is required. Yeah.
Another question we got here is, what is the general plan of transitioning to a resource-based economy? Have Roxanne made changes to the original plans?
I think it would be beneficial to first mention what the original plan was, which was to build this place and then create a major motion picture and maybe a theme park and then an experimental city. So that was kind of the original plan that Jacques had envisioned when he was around. And it's generally kept that very broad structure insofar as, okay, well, we have this place, it's not a major motion picture anymore, just like one
It's
movie,
expanded.
but it's a different concept for how to tell stories. And so, but the idea of trying to simulate the future through story is still part of the plans. And, you know, the Center for Resource Management, that was a first attempt at doing kind of a theme park concept. And of course, beyond that is an experimental city. So that was the original plan from Jacques. And so we've made some slight adjustments to that. But generally we're still holding to the purposes of those things.
Ultimately, but what we need to do to get there is a lot of work first, that a lot of groundwork, and being able to concisely put this information into text form as a model of what a resource-based economy is. We really didn't have that. And courses, we feel that that's important too. Once we compile all this information, I mean, it's mind-boggling, 800 hours, over 800 hours. And this was a lot of information while Jacques was in his prime, talking about a lot of different aspects of society and values and you know, technical issues, transportation and city systems, and you know, the range was huge, very broad. So this is information that Jacques had in his head, but the people who are working with it today do not. So we want to make sure that that's all in one place and we can use it appropriately, especially, as I mentioned, in courses.
And next question is, do you have any investors or sponsors?
Well, the Venus Project is a nonprofit organization, so we're really not looking for investors per se who put money into a project and want to return back. This is really a philanthropic organization, so we would want people to donate funds because they're interested in the future and what we have to offer for it. So we make our money through donations, or we will be making our money through grants, hopefully, or the products that we sell to help introduce this direction.
How can you evaluate the current progress of the project?
Well, there's two major areas that are most important to us right now, and that is, you know, building up the support base of the project, getting more subscribers to the channels, creating a better public representation of the Venus Project to the world. And we can measure progress there by looking at how many subscribers to the YouTube channel, which the Russian YouTube channel has helped a lot with. They have a very large subscriber base. And Facebook, other social media, statistics on our website about how much traffic we get. These kinds of things are markers of progress that indicate that our exposure is growing throughout the world. The other important area is the quality of our knowledge, the quality of the knowledge and information that we're putting out to the world. And a lot of that is made possible by collecting and processing the information in Jacques Fresco's lectures, transcribing it and classifying it, and putting out publications related to it. And then, of course, integrating knowledge from other people to build on that foundation that Fresco laid. To the extent we're able to put out papers and publications, that's a mark of progress. And as mentioned before, we've begun the transcription project. So on the website, there's a progress bar that shows how many transcripts are complete, how much money is spent. And so we're certainly making progress there. Anything else?
Nothing to add to that. Okay. Well, I do have something to add to that. Yeah, I think the progress, too, are the plans, the concrete plans that we're laying out in terms of how we're going to use these transcriptions, and I mean transcribing and the text forms, you know, when we get it in text form, and how we're going to reach the people that we want to reach. We're working on a theory of change as well. So we're trying to make concrete plans and specific plans as to how we get from here to there as well, which we really didn't have in the past.
Another question from the Russian-speaking community. How can we help the project?
Well, I would say keep up the good work that you have been doing. You're making tremendous progress on your YouTube channel and other things. So I would say continue to learn more about this project, and we will have more information for you as we continue doing the work here. And as we touched upon before, practice talking to people, present it in schools or any place else you can do that, lectures. Keep your group together as much as possible. And try not to divert into all different directions. Maybe, a lot of people get anxious and think they should be doing this or they should be doing that. And we're worried about it kind of reverting back to the status quo. So we will have information out there, as I mentioned, so you can get more definitive on this direction.
Yeah, the translations on the Russian YouTube channel have been very helpful. It's got probably the most significant following of any of the TVP platforms. And so that's a major indication of the value of the work they're doing, the number of people they're reaching. But also, there's a couple concrete things that the Russian community could help with. We're putting out a book of quotes by Jacques Fresco in the very near future, and a Russian translation would be very helpful. Also, we're trying to create a VR simulation or a virtual reality experience where you can go through the environment. And I've seen that some members of the Russian community, they've been doing work in the 3D modeling. We have a team that we work with in the United States platform for our project management, and they're working on 3D modeling for the VR experience. So anyone that has experience in the Russian community with 3D modeling could be very helpful for developing that project.
And it's also helpful. The VR team is giving us material to do 3D printed models of Jacques' designs on a small scale that we will be presenting. So if people help in the VR team, it also converts to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have plans for recording new lectures, writing books, or making a video blog?
Well, we've already mentioned that we are doing a book of quotes with Jacques. We will be doing many journals and many books on different topics and compilation of the whole direction as we do more of the transcriptions. So lectures, well, we continue to give lectures, and not so much as what Jacques used to do, where he'd just sit down and we'd film him and he'd talk about many different things, although we might be doing that as well. We're not doing that at the moment. So, and we mentioned the podcast that we'll be doing instead of a blog. So.
Yeah, so look forward to publications, posthumous publications by Jacques Fresco. The ideal is to produce a collected works of Jacques Fresco that has all of his outputted work, from drawings to lectures, all in one series of volumes. So that'll be some of the publications coming out. There may be some talks that come out in the near future that are invitations from other organizations to come give a talk. Those kinds of talks may appear online.
And there's also the idea of doing a book of Jacques sketches too. I don't know if people know, but when I knew him over 40 years, he did over 5,500 design sketches on all aspects of a resource-based economy. And I have always wanted to put that into a book form. And we'll probably expand on that with different texts as well. But actually, Nate archived all that material, so we have that all in digital form.
Would Jacques remain the main speaker of the project, delivering the principles of the project on videos?
Well, there's going to be a brief period of time where there's still a lot of focus on Jacques Fresco, just because we need to manage his knowledge and make sure that it's accounted for and transmittable to other people who are interested. So there's still going to be some focus on him, and we're going to create a website that's going to represent his body of work. So there's still going to be some of a spotlight on Jacques for the next couple of years, probably. But there's a public speaking team in the Venus Project. There's a few people in it, and there's other people undergoing training to give presentations. So right now, Roxanne is the primary speaker for the Venus Project. But there's 3 or 4 other people who are taking interest in giving public presentations. So it will expand as time goes on in the next few years.
And after accumulating all this knowledge that Jacques left us, we were pretty lucky that way, then as we reach out to other people too, who have fill in other components of what we're trying to do, I'm sure we will have conferences and inviting them in after we do podcasts and create some type of relationship with them, whether it be toward, an overall think tank for social change and what that would be based on Jacques' work, but also as consultants for the Transmedia project that we want to do. So we will be approaching them through many different avenues.
Yes, and many of those same people would be the ones that we go to when it comes time to actually construct some project somewhere. Either it be just a small community that carries forward the planning for a city, or even if it goes as large scale as a full-blown city. Those would be the people that we would have pre-existing relationships with, that we would call upon to bring their expertise to the task. And so there's many different avenues that involves those people.
Hopefully, with what we're trying to tell you in terms of our plans to try and reach out to people that we feel are needed, who are very educated in certain fields, or even if they work by themselves and working on different things we think correlate, that a lot of people are pushing us to, well, you should do something, you should do a community, like Jacques talked about, but they really didn't have an idea of really what that was about. And what they end up doing or wanting us to do is it reverts back to another sustainable community. And we're trying to do a planning center with strategically reaching the right people that are necessary to carry this out, which takes a lot of work, not just to do a community where people can live together and eat well and take care of themselves, but this is the backbone of a totally global change towards a systems approach on how you organize society, and kind of thinking of it as an engineering project for global change. So we really have to develop the backbone of this, which other people who push to do a community have no idea of the work that goes into it and what's necessary to fulfill the direction that Jacques talked about.
Are there any old videos of Jacques' research and experiments?
Jacques did film many of the experiments that he carried out in the past. He's talked about them in his lectures, and many of those experiments that he had done are many decades old. And some of the film that he did have, such as for the Immaculate Pig experiment, is long since rotted away. I oversee the archives and all that. Let's just say that the first third of Jacques' body of work is lost to history because it's either deteriorated or Jacques left it behind when he moved long ago to Florida. And so, unfortunately, no. I wish there was.
I don't think he ever, thought about that kind of thing where he was preserving what he did for prosperity. He talked about it. But, in the dying at 101, those materials are quite old too.
Yeah, most of the work that we have from Jacques spans mostly from about the 60s onward. Everything he did before that is mostly lost. Most of the time he was in Los Angeles and couldn't afford to take all the work that he had done over those years, all his drawings and his designs and inventions. That was the period of time when he was mostly involved in creating inventions, coming up with technologies and this kind of thing. After that, he turned more exclusively towards social change and sociocyberneering. So many of the more interesting, specific things that he worked on are gone.
We have a few pictures, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Have some of Jacques' technologies or inventions became obsolete?
Sure. But, Jacques was such a prolific inventor that I think a lot of the things he talked about really came into fruition as well, that he couldn't afford to patent or bring out. And at some point, he wasn't interested in doing products. He was more interested in social change. So all the products that he talked about, or the city designs or the transportation, they correlated with how he thought about a resource-based economy, like total city systems that go together very quickly, that redundant technology, but redundant design sometimes. So in order to feed, house, and clothe people all over the world, considering a global approach. So simple things like when Jacques used to talk about many, many years ago, before this came out, that the cars today were just, at that point, were very young. The technology was young. So he would talk about how cars would have radar or sonar on it. So you don't want the car to tell you something's in its way. You want the car to put its brakes on. And of course, we have that today. And he used to talk about how you don't want the car to tell you you have a flat tire. You want it to fill the tire up, which we don't have yet. But, he looked at everything. And as I said, many of the things have come into fruition and many haven't. And many are obsolete as well as new technologies came about. But the most important technology is the social design, which they don't even consider.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions and principles that were re-evaluated for the current times?
Maybe some technologies have been questioned. Certain approaches to how to make the system work may have changed insofar as they've depended on technology. So a good example is like the central computing idea, where it's all in one location. And today people talk much more about distributed computing, So those kinds of things are called into question and probably need to be revised. But as far as principles, we talked before about reaching a point of no return. And what do you do then if you're at the point of no return? What becomes your plan? Do you continue to try to build for this global civilization, or do you kind of pivot your plan and try to just develop something, at whatever scale, that will survive through the harsh conditions of the transition? In that case, it's not a global vision. It becomes something more restricted, just to salvage whatever you can to get through it. That's something to consider as conditions get worse and as we might approach the point of no return.
Jacques used to give lectures about that too.
Yeah.
What to do during these times just to survive until we could, work more toward the type of future that he talked about. It might come to that.
Mm-hmm.
Which books and additional materials were lately added to the recommended list?
Yeah, that list hasn't changed. It's still the list that was... actually, the book list that's on the website now is a revised version of a much longer list that Jacques had in the earlier years for recommended books. It's a much more compressed list with fewer books and a few new ones added since the Zeitgeist period. So no new ones have been added, but we do recommend a book called Principles of System Science by George Mobis.
Do you have any final words to say to the Russian-speaking community?
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge that Jacques Fresco's death was a tremendous loss for the Venus Project. And although continuing the work that he started is very challenging, we're very excited about our future plans.
And you have to remember that this is really new grounds that we're while it is very exciting, there's lots of uncharted area that we're going to be going through. And I also want to thank the Russian team for really everything that they've done. Just tremendous contributions. How many videos they've translated. And I want to let you know, too, that we have a lot of Russian-speaking people that come here every Saturday to the tours, which I always wanted to thank you for, because they were introduced to your translations and the hard work that you did to make that possible. So we all want to thank you here at the Venus Project for your wonderful contributions.
Paka paka.
Paka paka.